Kentucky Trivia 7. So we learned that Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and Virginia are officially called Commonwealths. The Confederate 1st Kentucky Cavalry became known as, had what nickname because of its high mortality rate? The Confederate 1st Kentucky Cavalry garnered what nickname because of its high mortality rate? The Orphan Brigade. What one-time resident of Elizabethtown served as the territorial governor of Florida from 1822 to 1834? What one-time resident of Elizabethtown served as the territorial governor of Florida from 1822 to 1834? W.P. Duvall. W.P. Duvall. What Elizabethtown lawyer served as the territorial governor of Illinois from 1809 to 1818? What Elizabethtown lawyer served as the territorial governor of Illinois from 1809 to 1818? Ninian Edwards. Confederate Ninian Edwards. Confederate Brigadier General Ben Hardin of Elizabethtown was offered what position in the Union Army at the outbreak of the Civil War? Confederate Brigadier General Ben Hardin of Elizabethtown was offered what position in the Union Army at the outbreak of the Civil War? The Paymaster. What colorful Civil War general and Western Indian fighter was a resident of Elizabethtown from 1871 to 1873? So, what colorful Civil War general, Western Indian fighter, resident of Elizabethtown, 1871 to 1873? It's George Armstrong Custer. Custer's last stand. He was in Elizabethtown for 2 years. What Hart County native and former Confederate general was a candidate for the U.S. Vice Presidency in 1896? What Hart County native and former Confederate general was a candidate for the U.S. Vice Presidency in 1896? Simon Bolivar Buckner. Simon Bolivar Buckner. How many Union soldiers were captured by Confederate General Braxton Bragg on September 17, 1863 at the Battle of Munfordville? So how many Union soldiers were captured by Confederate General Braxton Bragg on September 17, 1863 at the Battle of Munfordville? 4,000. In 1813, the General Assembly established what school at Bowling Green? In 1813, the General Assembly established what school at Bowling Green? The Warren Seminary. The Warren Seminary. Where did Confederate cavalryman John Morgan and his men hide from Federal troops following the burning of the Shakertown Depot? Where did Confederate cavalryman John Morgan and his men hide from Federal troops following the burning of the Shakertown Depot? The Lost River Cave. The Lost River Cave. On June 22, 1806, what notorious outlaw was killed and his head displayed on a pole in Webster County? On July 22, 1806, what notorious outlaw was killed and his head displayed on a pole in Webster County? The Mickajug Big Harpy. Mickajug Big Harpy. I don't know. Mickajug Big Harpy. What church denomination established Augusta College in 1799? It's kind of fucked up. I don't know. He's an outlaw, but he killed him. They had his head displayed on a pole in Webster County. Webster County. What church denomination established Augusta College in 1799? Methodists. Who donated land to Hopkins County in 1797 to bring the county seat to the evolving community of Hopkinsville? Bartholomew Wood. Bartholomew Wood. What U.S. president grew up and is buried just northeast of Louisville? What U.S. president grew up and was buried just northeast of Louisville? Also pivotal in the Mexican-American War. Zachary Taylor. Within 1 month of their arrival at Camp Beauregard near Mayfield in November 1861, how many Confederate troops died from illness? Within 1 month of their arrival at Camp Beauregard near Mayfield in November 1861, how many Confederate troops died from illness? 1,500. What Washington resident was appointed the territorial governor of Iowa in 1841 by President William Henry Harrison? in the 1 month that he was there? What Washington resident was appointed to the territorial governor of Iowa in 1841? John Chambers. In 1785, who became Surveyor General of Kentucky? In 1785, who became the Surveyor General of Kentucky? Colonel Thomas Marshall. What Revolutionary War soldier settled Powersville around 1783? What Revolutionary War soldier settled Powersville around 1783? Captain Philip Buckner. Around 1822, what famous educator and textbook developer taught school at Paris? William Holmes McGuffey. In 1804, what new Protestant sect was established by Reverend Barton W. Stone at Cane Ridge in Bourbon County? Christian Church. Dr. J. W. Hughes established what school at Wilmore in 1890? Dr. J. W. Hughes established what school at Wilmore in 1890? Asbury College. In 1805, what Quaker sect established a community in Mercer County? In 1805, what Quaker sect established a community in Mercer County? The Shakers. To whom was Sarah Taylor, daughter of Zachary Taylor, married to? Jefferson Davis. This is his first wife. It was Jefferson Davis's first wife. In 1855, what Carrollton native declined an appointment to serve as territorial governor of Nebraska? In 1855, what Northern Kentucky, Carrollton native declined an appointment to serve as territorial governor of Nebraska? It was William Orlando Butler. What fortification was constructed at Stamping Ground in 1790? What fortification was constructed at Stamping Ground in 1790? Lindsay Stockade. Prior to his death in 1850, who is said to have owned 40% of all land in Shelby and Henry counties? Prior to his death in 1850, who's owned 40% of all the land in Shelby and Henry counties? Thomas Smith. Who laid the cornerstone for the Lincoln Memorial in 1909? Who laid the cornerstone for the Lincoln Memorial in 1909? Former President Theodore Roosevelt. September 6, 1871, who became the first Confederate to be named to the Kentucky Court of Appeals after the Civil War? Judge W.S. Pryor. What large railroad corporation moved its headquarters to Anchorage in 1916? Southern Pacific Railroad. Who founded the Kentucky Military Institute near Linden in 1845? Robert T.P. Allen. Robert Toilet Paper Allen. How many prisoners were electrocuted at the state penitentiary at Eddyville between 1911 and 1935? How many prisoners were electrocuted at the state penitentiary at Eddyville between 1911 and 1935? 84. What fortification was constructed near present-day Wycliffe in 1780 by General George Rogers Clark? What fortification was constructed near present-day Wycliffe in 1780 by General George Rogers Clark? Fort Jefferson. How many Confederate cannon were placed on the bluffs near Columbus to control traffic on the Mississippi River? How many Confederate cannon were placed on the bluffs near Columbus to control traffic on the Mississippi River? 140. It's 140 cannon. What legendary railroad man was born at Jordan on March 14th, 1864? What legendary railroad man was born in Jordan, Kentucky on March 14th, 1864? John Luther Casey Jones. John Luther Casey Jones. Who settled Hickman in 1819? Who settled Hickman in 1819? James Mills. What company purchased the Maysville and Big Sandy Railroad in 1888? What company purchased the Maysville and Big Sandy Railroad in 1888? The C&O Railroad. What pioneer Baptist minister noted for bringing the traveling church from Virginia to Kentucky in 1781 is buried at Minerva? What pioneer Baptist minister noted for bringing the traveling church from Virginia to Kentucky in 1781 is buried at Minerva? Lewis Craig. As a boy, what U.S. president attended the Rand and Richardson School at Maysville for 1 year? As a boy, what U.S. president attended the Rand and Richardson School at Maysville for a year? It was Ulysses S. Grant, the drunk from Ohio. A granite marker was erected in 1925 near Washington to commemorate what frontiersman in the stockade he built in the area? A granite marker was erected in 1725 near Washington to commemorate what frontiersman in the stockade he built in the area? Simon Kitten. Built north. Is there Washington City? I mean, that's like the third reference to a Washington. Is there Washington in Kentucky? Says it's a village near the Ohio River in Mason County. It's been annexed by Maysville. I don't know. Is that what they meant? Near Maysville, Washington County? Sometimes now referred to as Old Washington. There's a log cabin built from a flatboat lumber. It's a Paxton Inn, Washington Presbyterian Church. Washington had a visitor become famous, Harriet Beecher, who after her marriage was known as Harriet Beecher Stowe. Time of her visit, she was still Harriet Beecher, teaching Western Female Institute in Cincinnati. She came to Washington to visit a student, Elizabeth Key, and saw a slave auction in front of the old courthouse in Washington. This auction and her other experiences with slavery led her to write Uncle Tom's Cabin. So Washington, Maysville, Washington is what inspired Harriet Beecher Stowe to write Uncle Tom's Cabin. That happened in Washington, so that's something that happened in Washington. In whose home did the first Mason County Court convene on May 26, 1789? It was Robert Rankin's. What Kentuckian was given charge of the Confederate Army of the West in 1861? Albert Sidney Johnson. Who was the first surveyor of Kenton County? John May. What bloody engagement on August 19, 1782 ended the Revolutionary War in the West? What bloody engagement on August 19, 1782 ended the Revolutionary War in the West? The Battle of Blue Licks. 72 white supremacists got their heads split. It was Daniel Boone. I want to say Simon Girty was probably there too. Thomas Metcalf, Kentucky's 10th governor, was known by what nickname? Thomas Metcalf, Kentucky's 10th governor. He was known by what nickname? The Old Stone Hammer. Thomas Metcalf was known as the Old Stone Hammer. Erected in 1804, what was the first hotel in Paris? Erected in 1804, what was the first hotel in Paris? It's called the Indian Queen. Of the participants in the legendary and long-running Hatfield-McCoy feud, which family is based in Kentucky? With the other one in West Virginia. The McCoys. The McCoys were the Kentucky side. The McCoys saw the old daddy patriarch McCoy saw his wife and all his kids cut down, and he never got any justice from the Hatfield clan. Indians under the leadership of what chief attacked Harrodsburg in 1777? So, Siege of Harrodsburg in 1777. What chief led the Indians? The Shawnee. It's Chief Blackfish. Chief Blackfish. Who was Kentucky's last surviving Shaker who died in 1925 at the age of 87? Who is Kentucky's last surviving Shaker who died in 1925 at the age of 87? It was Sister Mary Settles. Sister Mary Settles. Who was selected in 1861 to serve as the Confederate Provisional Governor of Kentucky? In 1861, who was selected as the Provisional Governor of Kentucky? George W. Johnson.